So we can pray it together. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayat. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Saraswati Devi, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Okay, so then the last 5 days now we've been studying this verse, first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we have recited, and so far 3 of the guys have completely memorized, so that's awesome. And now we're going to enter into the purports given to this verse by our Srila Gurudev, Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. So Gurudev gives us different meanings of this verse in his book. He spoke the lectures in New Braj, Badger, California, and later on this was published into a book called The Secret Truths of the Bhagavatam. So I will speak a few things about the different meanings that Gurudev gave, quoting from Gurudev or remembering what Srila Gurudev would say. So first we have the direct meaning. Janmadasya yaton vayadi taratasharteshva vigyasvarat tene brahma hridaya adi kavaye muyanti yat suraya tejo vari mridam yata vinimaya yatra trishargo mrisha damna svena sada nirastakuhkam satyang param dhimahi. So Gurudev first gives the general meaning. He says, Vyasadeva writes, Janmadasya yato. It means, who is this about? And first of all, Gurudev is saying that Krishna's name is not directly given, but the indication, Gurudev says, is that this is all about Sri Krishna, the absolute truth. So Gurudev says, we've read the original ordinary meaning, so I won't spend extra time discussing it. We'll just go right into the purport instead of saying we know the general meaning now. That which is directly and indirectly manifesting the cosmic creation, including creation, maintenance, and destruction, being fully independent, fully aware, and for their own purposes. We meditate on that absolute truth, which imparted knowledge in the heart of Lord Brahma, the first created being. This knowledge, because it was imparted directly to Brahma, he could understand it, but other beings, which were his creations, sages and demigods, they became illusioned by this. Then there are the 3 elements which are visible, Tejo, Vadi, Mridam, fire, water, earth, which go through different cycles of action and reaction and transformation through the process of karma, and the 3 modes of material nature, Trishago, goodness, passion, and ignorance, Sattva, Rajatama. That Supreme Personality, which is performing all these activities, he is also separate from all those things in his own transcendental abode, and that is what the last line is discussing. Dhamna svena sada nirastakukam satyang param dinahi. He is completely separate from this. There is no illusion in his own abode, because it is not present. There can be no possibility of illusion. Like in the sun planet, there can be no darkness. Darkness means the absence of light. And there's no absence of light on the sun planet. It's the very source of light. In the same way, there is no possibility for there to be this Maya, which is Jad Maya, in the spiritual abode. So therefore there is no illusion there. Krishna is situated in his own pastimes with his own associates. He is always self-sufficient. Sada svena damna svena sada nirastakukam satyang param dhimahi. So this is the apparent meaning, or what is easily understood, what is the direct meaning. So then Srila Gurudev said that Krishna's name is not only directly mentioned, but all the different things, all the qualities we are talking about are applied to him. This means that this verse is not in reference to the impersonal Brahma Jyoti or Nirvishesh Brahma. It's not about the impersonal expanse of spirit, it's about the personality of Godhead himself, which is a higher principle. So he's saying it actually is referring to Brajendanandan Shamsundar in Braj. Not any personality of Godhead, but the ultimate personality of Godhead, or Param Satya, is Shri Krishna in Brajabhumi. We talked about that the last few days. Hari wasn't here, but we were talking about why would God want to be Brajendra Nandan Sham Sundar Krishna? And why he is a higher principle than Vaikuntha Narayan. So, we already covered that in a few lectures. So then, that Krishna, he is manifesting everything, he is performing everything through his different energies. That is Janmadhyasyato. Anvayadi Taratas, directly and indirectly. Gurudev says then, I'm going to explain what is directly and indirectly. Anvayadi Taratas. So he said, Anvayad, Krishna has 3 different Shaktis. Anybody know the 3 Shaktis of Krishna? Okay, there's few different categories of 3 Shaktis. Sri Bhulila, also Swarup Shakti as Sandini, Hladini and Sambit. But in this reference, Gurudev is saying the 3 Shaktis or powers Gurudev refers to is called Chit Shakti, Jiva Shakti and Maya Shakti. Chit means spiritual and Shakti is potency. So Krishna's spiritual potency. Spirit refers to also directly consciousness. But the gods, Chit Shakti is like God's own power. It's like directly connected to him. Jiva Shakti, which is the living entities, that's also a potency of God. That's why the Jivas are like Para Prakriti, one kind of higher potency. And then Maya Shakti, which is Apara Prakriti. Maya Shakti is Para and Apara is Jiva, I believe. I think that's right. So then he's saying this, so directly, so we're talking here about creation, maintenance, destruction, and Krishna is doing it. So how does he do it directly? That's the question. How does God create existence as we know it? Directly. Huh? Right? Yeah, but Gurudev doesn't get into it that so exact, in such a specific way. In a broad sense, he says the Chit Shakti, which is like his transcendental energy, separate from this world. He creates all the spiritual planets, Goloka Dham, Vaikuntha, Ayodhya, Dwarka, as well as all the different spiritual forms of Krishna, Baladev, Nanda, Jashoda, the gopis. They're all manifested by the Chit Shakti. So directly, from God everything is manifesting. Like Krishna is the cause of all causes. But we have the material reality and the spiritual reality. And the spiritual reality is manifested by the spiritual potency. So there is a distinction between spirit and matter. And God creates spirit with what is spirit. It's like you cannot create something without something which is like that thing you're creating. Like a tree gives birth to a tree. An animal gives birth to the same kind of animal which it is. So God's spiritual manifestation is created by his spiritual energy, Chit Shakti. Then Jiva Shakti, naturally, what would Jiva Shakti do then naturally? Jiva Shakti manifests the Jivas. So Jiva Shakti is like the power of God from which directly manifest all the different living entities. Anything which is not God. That's why it's interesting to see Chit Shakti, Jiva Shakti are separate. Chit Shakti manifests the spiritual beings who are eternally like the Kaya Vyuha of like Radharani, Sakis and Mandris, the gopis. They are directly manifested from Srimati Radhika. They're like Chit Shakti. They're not conditioned souls like us or even ordinary living beings. Gurudev says there are different categories of living entities or living beings, like someone who is a person. In the spiritual world, the persons are manifested by the spiritual potency directly, Anvayad. And then in the Tatashta Shakti means it's not directly in Vaikuntha or the spiritual world and not in the material world. It's like in between. And this Jiva Shakti manifests the living entities there. So that's how Krishna manifests Jiva Shakti, or the living entities like us here. We are coming from Jiva Shakti. Question?
I think, what about these gopis that are kind of you? Would it be more proper to say that we are Swarup Shakti? Because Prabhu is not manifesting in gopis.
Well, Gurudev says here, Chit Shakti is manifesting gopis, Nanda, Jashoda, every Baladev, Vaikuntha. It's a broad sense. See, included in Chit Shakti will come those who are manifested by Baladev, those manifested by Radhika. It's included in that. Chit Shakti, we're talking about the very broad sense now. Chit, Jiva, Maya. Spirit, matter, and then the soul in between. The soul is there like in the border of matter and spirit. Our souls. Okay, so then what is Maya Shakti? So Jiva Shakti manifests both the liberated and the conditioned souls, those who are free from Maya and those who are bound by Maya. Which is interesting. So the idea is that even in the spiritual world there are liberated souls, but they're still not the same as like Radha, Jashoda. Means those who are like the eternal associates of Krishna himself, like Radhika and Yashoda and Nanda Baba, the Parishad, the associates. So there are some jivas in the spiritual world that are manifest from Jiva Shakti that are liberated. But we are in this world, so we are naturally conditioned. It means we are conditioned by matter, the lower energy, Jad Maya. So then he says Maya Shakti. So Maya Shakti manifests this world. Everything we see which is inert. The example again comes. Something creates something like itself. So Maya Shakti creates things that are like Maya, inert matter, the world that we perceive. Jiva Shakti manifests the Jivas. Chit Shakti manifests the Chit associates of Sri Krishna. Gurudev said Maya Shakti is also not zero. So this is a technical thing. The Mayavadis like to say Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, that the spiritual world is true and the material world is false. But Gurudev said that's not true. What we see in this world, it's concrete, it has existence, has reality. It's not void, it's not nothing. The illusion is that we are covered, when we are covered by matter, we think we are this body. That is the illusion. We think I am the king, I am the slave, I am the worker, I am the businessman, I am the householder, I am the renunciate. All these are different layers of ignorance covering the soul. Until we enter the real understanding of the soul, and we don't know who we truly are. Until that time, we're in some form of illusion or not. But the world itself is real. This world is real. Like when they say in the Matrix that the world is false. That the world has some substance. The question is, you are a slave to that. You're not a slave to nothing. You can't be a slave to nothing. You're a slave to something that has existence. So now we'll go to Taratas means indirectly. So Gurudev said, what is the meaning of indirect? That we are conscious entities, we are the soul. And this world that we are in is like dead. Inert means it has no consciousness. When the body dies, it's that. Why is it dead? Because the spirit has left the body. It means the consciousness has left the body. That thing which is us, which is our awareness, has left the body, so we are dead. Okay? So therefore, what is the meaning of indirect? Although Maya is dead meaning it has no life, has no consciousness, still, there's a very wonderful thing, is that which is dead is controlling and covering over what is alive. This is like the mystery of nature and reality, is that we are alive. That principle within us that is the life force, the spark of consciousness, it has come under the tyranny of matter, or which is dead. So then, why is that happening? That is the big question, because this is like we are in the state of existence that we don't want to be in, or slavery. No one wants to be a slave. So right now we are the slave to a lower nature, and we want to become free of that. So the question of how to become free, that is like the sadhan. What is the practice you can do by which you can become free of slavery? We are enslaved to material nature, and to get free we have to understand what is the cause that brought us into slavery. When we get into that, we understand that we made the choice to live separately from our true being. We made the choice to turn away from the true purpose of our being, which was ultimately to be in the spiritual world as a beloved, loving servant of God, in a relationship with Him, and we chose instead Maya with our independent free will, and immediately Krishna arranged that Maya covers over us, because Krishna doesn't do something that we don't want. Krishna gives independence, and He also gives mercifully the fulfillment of our desires. So when we decide, I want to go against God, I want to turn away from light, and then God creates darkness to fulfill our desire. If you want to turn away from light, and there's no darkness, you'll still be in light. So the jiva, he has the desire, it's like to turn his face away from light, or the face of God, which is like illuminous. That's why we always have like the halo around Krishna, or around Gurudev also. There's like the halo of light, means light, awareness, true consciousness. Turning away from it into the darkness. God creates the shadow energy. It said in the beginning that Vyasadeva, when he meditated in Bhakti Yoga, he realized Krishna in his abode with Radha, and then he saw Maya standing behind in the shadow of Krishna in a very submissive role. So Maya Shakti, this material nature, is like the shadow energy of the Lord. And when the jiva soul turns away from God, then the soul is covered over by Maya by their own choice, because God is fulfilling our desire. And what is He fulfilling specifically? We want to become the separate enjoyers, like the masters. And by nature we're not. By nature we're the servant. By nature we're infinitesimal. We're part of the whole, so our nature is to be in connection with the whole as the infinitesimal part. But when we turn away from that, we separate ourselves from our real nature. We come in Maya, and then we want to be the masters. So God facilitates that, and because of that we end up suffering because of our illusory state of being. When something is not in its true dharma, its true, how it should really be, then it is feeling some lacking or suffering. Ultimately it said, what is the real suffering of the conditioned soul? And the real suffering is simply that we are suffering because we are longing for something that we don't have. And what is that longing? That we are longing to be united. Yoga means being united. We are longing to be united with Sri Krishna, our beloved. Because we are separate from that by our own choice, then we are suffering in this material nature, and we are covered over by Maya. But that is the very wonderful thing. So this is only possible by Krishna's energy, which is that which can make the impossible possible. Kartum akartum anyata kartum sa ishvara. So Krishna has the power to make what would seem impossible possible. So the jiva, which is alive, life force, spark of consciousness, is covered over by dead matter. So this is what is meant by itaratas, indirectly. Okay. So Shakti, when we say Jiva Shakti, Shakti represents the power or the potency of Krishna, and Krishna is the potent himself. So Krishna, he is, all different potencies are present with Krishna because they are inseparable. So Ladini Shakti, Samvit Shakti, and Sandini Shakti. We said Chit and Jiva and Maya. So then within that there is Ladini, Samvit, and Sandini, which represents Srimati Radhika. Ladini Shakti is really technical, yeah? No problem. Srimati Radhika, Ladini Shakti, Samvit Shakti is Krishna. Ladini means pleasure or bliss. Samvit means consciousness. Sandini means the bedrock of existence. So existence potency is Baladev, the brother of God, brother of Krishna, the first expansion. So when we say Krishna is the original primal form of consciousness, and the jiva is the infinitesimal part of consciousness, which is what is the qualitative sameness of God with God. That our jiva, we are qualitatively same with God through our consciousness, the fact that we are conscious. Then what is the first thing that manifests from Krishna? Baladev Prabhu. And that Baladev Prabhu represents Sandini Shakti, which is like the concrete existence. Consciousness is like abstract almost. It's like you cannot see it or touch it or feel it. Something that pervades everything without being felt or touched. But existence, Sandini Shakti, that is like the binding force that keeps everything together. Okay? So, then we'll go forward. So directly and indirectly, everything is created by Krishna. That's the point of Anvayadi Taratas. Through his different energies. That's why we also say Shakti Parinambad. That Krishna is not creating himself because he doesn't need to. His nature is that he is, it's described that Krishna is Ichamai, that he has the desire, and he is Svatantra. He is Svatantresha, he is independent, and through his desire, when he desires something, then his Shakti, his energy, manifests it. That's why that Shakti, is described to be like the feminine principle. which is fulfilling the desire, the masculine principle, which is Sri Krishna, the original God. And the goddess, or Shakti, is manifesting everything by his desire. So that's why it's also indirect, because Krishna is indirectly doing it through his Shakti. The Shakti is directly doing everything, and some things are through different Shaktis. Okay, got past that. Then Avidya means Krishna is understanding everything. He is fully omniscient. No one is as expert as he is. That's also another meaning of Avidya. Then we understand, Gurudev said that Krishna, the Krishna we are talking about, he is the original cause. It's not Narayan. It's not Ram, Nrsimha, Kalki, Vaman. We talked about that before. There's many verses in the different Upanishads and Sastras that discuss this. Most Hindus think that Narayan is the original and Krishna manifests from Narayan as well as Ram. But actually, if you look into all the scriptures of our Vedic teachings, you can see that this is actually a misconception. The real conception is that Krishna Braj, who is youthful and always enjoying pleasure pastimes with Radhika in the Kunjas of Braj, he is the original being, and from him Brahma, Shiva, Mahesh manifest. Alright, moving forward. Tene Brahma Hrida. We already talked about that. He imparts the knowledge in Brahma. Muyanti Yat Surya Tejo Varim Hridam. So Gurudev gives explanation of this here. This is interesting. Tejo Varim Hridam. He said there are three elements in this world that we can perceive with our eyes. We can see, they're like, so that is Teja means fire, Body means water, and Hridam means earth. So he says that Teja refers to Krishna. So when we talk here, Gurudev says when we talk about fire, this fire is referring to Krishna. The water is referring to the Jiva, and the earth is referring to Maya. So that's an interesting thing maybe you can take note of. Tejo, fire, is representing Krishna, water is representing the Jiva, and Hridam is representing the earth. So why is he giving that example? Okay, why is he giving that example? So he said, we can see Krishna by different processes. So it means, what is the nature of fire? He said, actually, fire is always present in one form or another. It's like in its unmanifest state. There's fire everywhere. There's fire present in the wood. Without fire being there, you could not light it on fire. It wouldn't burn. Like you look, if you take like something like a diamond or something, and you try to light it on fire, it's not going to burn. It's not going to combust. So Gurudev, he says that Krishna is such a thing that you cannot see Krishna directly. You need some process. So what is the process? He said if you take a match, you light the match, then it manifests fire and you can see it. Or if you take two sticks together and you rub them together really fast, and they're dry sticks, then fire can come. So he said that in this way, by some scientific process, Krishna is like the invisible ultimate God. We cannot see him directly in this world. The nature of Maya is darkness. And Krishna is representing fire, which is light and the ability to give vision. So through a spiritual process, you can see Sri Krishna, you can perceive him. So the fire also represents consciousness. Without consciousness, you cannot perceive anything. So that's why we pray to Gurudev for divine, like we saw this spark of divine consciousness. It represents light. Why do we say the consciousness is like light? Also because light is one type of fire ultimately. It's one type of that fire principle, and that is like referred to as the conscious principle. So that's why Krishna is also referred to as fire or consciousness. Okay, so what develops from fire? Then that comes water. So then he also says, why do we say to Krishna, Jnananjana Shalakaya? That we are in ignorance or darkness, and we pray for the light of divine knowledge, the torchlight, which is like fire. We pray to Gurudev, give us the fire of the torchlight of divine knowledge by which we can see the truth. That means we pray to Gurudev, give us Krishna. Jnananjana Shalakaya. Because Krishna is non-different from Satyam or truth, and non-different from Veda or knowledge. because he is Samvit Shakti. Samvit Shakti means consciousness or knowledge. This is going to be the most technical class, I think. Okay, you missed all the Ras classes, Hari. We had 3 or 4 classes just about Radha Krishna Leela. Now we came back down to Tattva. Okay, so then Vadi means water, the Jiva, and it means the Jiva. So this is a comparison giving. So we gave the comparison of Krishna with fire, then the comparison of the Jiva with water. Anyone know why the Jiva is referred to as water?
Because it's subordinate.
Subordinate. Yes, the Jiva is subordinate. It also is, from fire comes water, and from water comes earth. This is like the hierarchy of the descent of the elements. The elements descend from the more subtle to the more gross. So first there's like the 2 we didn't mention here because you can't visibly see them, the space. How can you see space? It's like that thing which just is between everything. Space, ether. And air, right? It's like invisible air. But from fire is manifest water, from water manifests earth. So that's the idea, the hierarchy of being. Krishna, God, Jiva, the soul, Maya, nature, material nature, which is like fire, water, earth. But then there's a specific example given, which is given in the first chapter of Jaiva Dharma. 10 bonus points, anyone who knows the first chapter. How is the Jiva referred to in the water and the ice state?
Oh, I remember. Because like original nature of water is to be liquid, so therefore it's like a servant of God. But in conditional state, it's like water put in a fridge, it becomes ice, so its nature changes. So like temporary.
Bingo. Okay. So the Jiva is described to be like water because when water becomes solidified by an external environment, so then it changes its shape and becomes ice. Its nature changes. Water is generally liquid by nature. Some people could say it has 2 states of being. One is liquid, one is solid. And that also applies because it said that the Jiva can always come under the influence of Maya. So the Jiva can always come under the influence of this energy, the Maya energy. But the nature, when you say water, people don't think of ice. Water means liquid. But that water can take the state of ice. So what does that mean? Also, it can become gas. But then it's kind of like it evaporates and then eventually it'll come down. So when it becomes, you could say like when it becomes evaporated, it's like shedding the coils of material or bondage and being liberated and going to the spiritual world, you could say. Anyway, because that, and how does that happen? If you continue with the analogy, how does water go from ice to water again and then to vapor? By going from a cold environment to a hot environment, right? The hotter you get, the faster you evaporate. So that's why, again, Krishna, by the more Krishna conscious we become, the more God conscious or soul conscious we become, the more quickly we can shed the layers of ignorance. So therefore the soul is described to be water. And in its conditioned state, when it turns away from its true nature, it becomes solidified by connection with Maya. So when it becomes by the external environment of cold environment, frigid environment, it becomes ice. And then its nature of being liquid changes to being solid and cold. So, when we are in our Naimatika Dharma, Nitya Dharma means the natural state of being which you are meant to do. Your constitutional state of being, that is the Jaiva Dharma or Nitya Dharma, how you should be. The Naimatika Dharma means the temporary covering which you identify with as your being. It's an illusion. So like when you are ice, if you were ice, you'd think this is how I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be ice. But you're not. That your natural state is water, liquid. So therefore, the jiva changes into like the ice state, and then he starts to think, I am this body.
He has a question.
Yeah. How long have we gone?
Okay, because in the natural condition of the soul, like similar to liquid condition, like liquid condition of natural condition of water, what we mean by water is liquid. So
Okay.
natural condition of soul is servant of God. So it's nature from the beginning. Was created like servant of the God.
Yeah.
So basically, he wants to ask why, how it's happened that we was covered.
We talked about that before. By choice.
Please remember.
Krishna gives free will, the choice. So at the beginning, Krishna gave us the choice.
If since the beginning also I created, I will try to explain, maybe not easy. If since the beginning I was created like servant, then why I choosing to look? For me, must be clear where to look, which direction to look. Who make us look in wrong way?
Because you also remain servant, right?
Even in this world, you're the servant. It's not that your nature of being a servant has changed. But okay, that's one point. But you're saying, why didn't you go to the higher principle? Why did you choose the lower principle?
Yeah, because for me must
So
be
Gurudev said this is a very mysterious thing, but he said that it's like you have the choice, but it's also partly chance, which that you make the wrong choice.
Because you have no knowledge.
At that point in time, when you make the choice, you don't have knowledge of good or evil, what is right and what is wrong. You may have some inclination, but Gurudev describes it. This is like a whole separate class in and of itself, and we'll do it. We'll do it when we talk about Krishna. When we learn the verse, Jivara Surupoi Krishna Nityadas. We'll talk about it then. We'll do a whole class on it. Gurudev has a whole book on it,
Okay.
so I don't want to give you the cheap answer, because if you tell something very quickly, it's like the full answer is not realized in the heart. We have to dive into it deeply. But in essence, Gurudev said, we won't give you the full answer, we'll just tell you the conclusion. Is that you have some choice, but what you choose is partly chance. And by making the wrong choice, this is also like a pastime or lila of Krishna. God arranges this.
Can we stop here? I think
Let's just leave it at that.
Yes.
We can even do this after the next verse if you want.
I'm briefly explaining.
And also, water. This is one example given of the
So you're
soul.
going deeper now.
No, I'm talking about body. Krishna is not just fire, and Jiva is not just water. Gurudev is telling it a purport. He's saying one example is given of Krishna to fire, one to water, one to earth, to give the idea of the hierarchy or the descent of fire, water to earth, and also to give some specific examples. So water example is given to show that some transformation comes, and then again we can transform into our proper state. So he said that we become like ice, then we can come back like water, we can become into our true being. So we'll have a whole class about this, because it's a deep subject, maybe even like a whole week of classes. So then earth, okay, moving on. Earth is referred to as Maya Shakti, this material nature, or the earth world as we know it. Earth, right? Soil represents the earth itself. So why is that? He's saying the example given is with earth, with soil, we can make many different types of pots to cook with, like clay pots, many different shapes and sizes. So Gurudev said in Maya you can create, many different forms are created, but ultimately they're from the same substance, and there's one source to it. He says the same is there with gold. You can make a cup of gold, or like a necklace of gold, or a ring of gold, or so many different things out of gold, but ultimately this is all coming from the one same source. So therefore, yata vinimayo yatrat vishargo mirsha means that everything we are perceiving is born of the different manifestations and mixtures of all these different ingredients. Some things have more fire, some things have more water, some things have more earth, and all the different combinations of this. And these are all like the vinimayo, the action and reaction of material nature. Everything is transforming from one subject into another subject by the agent of like creation and transformation, maintenance, destruction. So what is that thing which is causing everything to transform? Yatra Trishargo Mrisha. The Trisharga, the modes of nature, which is goodness, passion, ignorance. So these are all creating transformation or exchange. So therefore, Trishargo Mrisha, if without this Trishargo, or the agent of transformation, which is birth, death, and growth or change, or birth, maintenance, and destruction, without that, these agents, which are also goodness, passion, and ignorance, then everything would stay the same. Nothing would ever change. So it's almost like it's necessary for this world. So Gurudev said, when we talk about Sri Shargo, it means creation, maintenance, destruction. And creation is in line with which guna? Rajagun means the passion. And it's also related to red. The color red represents passion, and it represents creation. And then the next one, which is called, it's like the higher quality, is sattva, maintenance, which is also referred to with the color white, and goodness. So without some passion, you can't create something. You have to be passionate to create something. And without some goodness, you can't maintain something. You're always just passionately creating. If you don't like to maintain things, then they'll just fall into disrepair. So goodness is the mode of maintenance. And ignorance, laziness, which is one of the symptoms of ignorance, or tamagun, that is the cause of destruction. It's like when you're really lazy and you don't want to do anything, you're not creating and you're not maintaining, then everything is just naturally going to be destroyed. That's why the nature of material existence is that everything is naturally like falling towards destruction from the time it is born. Like from the time that you are born, you're growing and everything, but it's like there's a shot clock over your head. Everything is ultimately decaying. And that's the nature of this world. That like the second law of thermodynamics is that whatever goes up must come down. So in this world, without maintenance, everything will be destroyed. And without creation, then nothing will be there. But the nature of Maya is inert, jad. The nature of this material energy is jad, or dead, or tama. One definition of, that's why Tejo Vadi Mridam, it's also like these examples are given there of goodness, passion, ignorance. And fire is like passion. Kriya Shakti, action. Creative power is like fire. And water is like Sattva-gun. And Mridam, earth, is like Tamagun, or very dull. Okay? So without like Jiva Shakti and Krishna Shakti also, this world would just be dead. That's another understanding. Because the water is representing the Jiva, fire is representing Krishna. The earth on its own is just Tama. Without water, fire, everything is just like Tama, dead and not transforming, it's just staying in one state. Okay, so when Krishna pulls the Jiva Shakti out of material nature at the time of cosmic dissolution, when Brahma is dying, after like trillions of years, after 100 years of Brahma, and each day is like millions of years. At that time, when everything is pulled out, then everything again goes just tama, darkness. Just like without fire, there's no light. And without water, there's no life. Right? You can't live without some type of liquid water. So in the same way, without the Jiva and Krishna, this material energy is just void. That's like the void. Just Maya without Krishna and Jiva. So that's a bit of an explanation about that. This whole line is referring to the spiritual world, how it's separate from the material nature. So the question is, how can we reach the last bit? How can we reach Dhamna Svena Sada? To do that, we have to escape from the matrix. To escape from the matrix, which means your mind and intelligence has been enslaved into a false conception of life, that I am this body, I am male, I am female, I am Russian, I am American, I like this, I don't like that. These are all different coverings of the self because of our karma, our past actions. Our real consciousness has been covered over by different types of bodies or different coverings of earth. That's why when we say the first verse of Shikshastakam, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, that we want to cleanse the mirror of the heart so that we can see the real self. It's like when we look in the mirror and it's covered by dirt or earth, mridam, we can't see who we are. So we want to cleanse this Maya from our soul. what is that Maya? It's representing earth. So to cleanse, it's like dirt. You have to cleanse from the mirror of the heart. And to cleanse that earth from the mirror of the heart, you have to, what that Maya represents is when we said Ridam, earth represents, clay can be turned into different kinds of forms, a cup, a big pot, a small pot, a brown pot, many different designs, or like so many things you can make out of earth. Imagine anything you can make out of earth. That's one of the transformations of earth. But all those different things, in reference to the soul, they are coverings of ignorance. So what are those coverings for us? Those ideas that I am in a female body, I am female. I identify with feminine problems, or if someone attacks women, I think they're offending me. Or I am a male, someone says something about men, that's bad, I think they're attacking some part of me. That idea that I'm a man or I am a woman, that idea that I am from this nation or that nation, all these things are like the Maya, which is transformed into one form or another, like the clay pots. Maya, or the matrix, it's covered over our knowledge because of our karma. And what is karma? Karma is a reaction. But what does a reaction come from? An action. So an action means, when do we act? We act because of desire. So when we desire something, we act to achieve it, and by our action, then a reaction comes because of that. So because of the reaction, then we get some type of different covering. The reaction of karma, when we suffer or enjoy from something, that is a reaction, which is like a covering of Maya. So I thought, I want to, in one life I may be Indian, and I'm always thinking about going to America and getting a beautiful house and car and a beautiful American wife. And I'm always thinking about that. Next life I may become that.
You can be shorter. You can tell American dream. That's all.
The American dream.
Yeah.
So then you become that. Or an American may become a European or African, maybe anything. We're always changing our state of being from one to another. Like Prabhupada would say, if we're always inclined to eat like raw steak, next life will become an animal that is fit for that, like a tiger that's always eating animals raw. So whatever state of being you're absorbed in, it will lead you to that state of being because it's your desire. Krishna fulfills your desire because you are jiva with some desire, and Krishna arranges to fulfill your desire. So therefore, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yang yang vapi smaram bhavam tyajat gante kalevaram tam tamavaiti kuntaya, that he says in the Bhagavad Gita, that which you meditate upon, especially at the time of death, whatever you're thinking of, you will attain that body. So in the Bhagavatam it tells the story of Puranjana. Puranjana is always thinking about Puranjani, his wife, and in his next life he becomes a woman. So those who are always thinking about women, they will become women. Those who are always thinking about men, they will become, yes, Atul.
But if there is no action, how reaction will come?
That's ending the cycle of karma. But okay, let's I'm gonna make a few flags. Wait, hold on. Good questions. Good question. Wait, I want to write down question. Without action, how can a reaction come? Yeah? Okay. Question by Atul. And Leelananda question was? Again, I want to write down to think about it, and we'll make a class just for this question.
Okay, I will make shortly this very famous question. Basically, I'm making him simple. Why?
That's it, just why. Okay, so we'll deal with why in one class, which is basically why did this happen to us? Is it God's fault or our fault? Why do we suffer?
Yeah, why basically we look towards shame.
Not fair.
That's not fair.
Okay, and for a tool, I'll give you a hint. We're going to talk about Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about karma, vikarma, and akarma. Okay, karma is generally considered pious action. Vikarma is immoral or impious action, and akarma is inaction. But these are not what we would think they would be. Okay, so Krishna says karma, akarma, and vikarma are extremely difficult to understand unless you are realized. Means what you think is inaction may really be action. What you think is impious action may really be pious or inaction. What you think of as piety may be impiety. Unless you are in a realized state of being, you cannot really know. So when you are saying, if we are not acting, how does a reaction come? It's not possible for there to be a reaction without an action, so you are acting. So the question is, how do you understand that fully? And that we will deal with soon. Okay? This is like, they call this a can of worms. You open up a can of worms, it means, okay, we'll deal with that later. It's too messy now. Can of worms.
This is idiom,
Yeah. Because we are going in one direction. Like we are driving towards Delhi. But on the right, some beautiful sign came up and we thought, oh, what is in that direction? But we don't want to go away. We want to go in this direction now, then we'll go there. We'll come back. So 2 different branches came. 2 can of worms. Lila and Atul's. Okay, so we're going to finish this explanation here. So the Jiva is in between Maya and Chit. Jiva is there, which is the soul. Chit, which is spirit, God. And Maya, which is Jud or inert. It's like death, life, and ultimate truth and being. How do we go from A to B? That's why when we hear different religions, they always are saying like up and down. The soul can go to hell, the soul can go to heaven. We have a choice. We want to go up or down. By our action, by our action and by mercy, then our trajectory can change. So therefore Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says how to conquer over the material energy. It is very, very difficult. A person who thinks I am the doer and this is my body, who is covered by false ego, cannot cross over material nature. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karamani sarvasa ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Those who think that I am the doer, while they are covered over by material nature and false ego, they think they are doing all these things in material nature, but actually they are not the doer. So you're asking about action and reaction. The soul, Atma, is not the doer, as long as he is in the dreamer state. We are the slave, and it's like we're stuck in a dream. We are enslaved to the dream that we are this body and I need to do this, I need to do that because this is who I am. But that's not action for the soul. The 3 modes of nature, which is creation, maintenance, destruction, which is goodness, passion, and ignorance, they are what is actually the doer. Prakrite kriya manani. Krishna says in the Gita, the material nature is what is acting through the jiva, which is under ignorance and false ego. So material nature is acting through the 3 modes and acting upon the jiva. So we are not the doer. We have to give up the idea that we are the doer in this world and take shelter of the higher energy. We have to go higher instead of lower. So we have to progress instead of go digress. So how do you do that? He said, without my mercy, it's not possible. So we have to endeavor to receive the mercy of Krishna and his associates by pleasing them. So that's what Bhakti Yoga is. Bhakti Yoga is that action. Yoga means both an action, a kriya, and a mood, a bhav. Real bhakti means you do service with the proper mood, with the proper action. Both are together. So if you have the proper mood, you get mercy. But without some action also, there's not mercy. You have to work. You have to do some function, action. And you have to pray for mercy. So the example given is that of the cat and the monkey baby. The kitten only relies on the mother's mercy. The mother, when it needs to move somewhere, it picks the kitten up by the scruff of its neck and carries it around. That's the path of mercy. The Christians have a big argument about this. They say God is attained by good works or God is attained by mercy alone. Faith and mercy. So what we say is that both are necessary. The kitten strategy is that we only are relying on the mercy of the mother. But the monkey, it's like we need the role of the father and the mother. Father represents justice. Mother represents mercy. Justice means you have to do what is right in order to receive what you want. You can't just get help from others and not do anything yourself. You have to deserve it. That is justice. And mercy is you don't deserve it, but I'll help you anyway. So we need both because ultimately we know everything is dependent on Krishna's mercy. But at the same time, Krishna doesn't take away our free will. So unless we really want it, Krishna won't take us out of Maya. So the monkey example is that the baby monkey, unless it clings on to the mother will jump and move away without the baby monkey. When the monkey runs away, you see in Vrindavan or in India, the monkeys, they'll cling onto their mother very tightly when it's about to move. And if they don't cling on, the mother will move along anyway. So this is the idea of justice. You have to act properly. And you have to deserve it. So our philosophy is that we follow both sides. We perform the proper duty or action, but we rely only on mercy. Both. So we must surrender. That is the point. We must surrender. Sarva dharman prityaja mam ekam sharanam braja hang tam sarva papebhyo mokshayasyami ma suchaha. Krishna says, do not fear. I will protect you in all circumstances. Surrender unto me. Give up all dharma and adharma. That's a whole other class we'll deal with as well. Give up dharma and adharma. That's the next verse. Dharma projita kaitava. Why do you give up dharma? Because ultimately it's cheating. Dharma in this world is cheating. Why? Because dharma in this world, unless you're following the higher dharma, it's a type of enslavement. The dharma of a woman in this world is to serve her husband like he is God. No woman wants to do that nowadays. Why? Because the man is not God. Why should I serve him like he is God? He doesn't properly love me, doesn't properly take care of me. Still you serve him like God. Krishna says, give up this dharma, surrender unto me. Krishna told the gopis when they came to him in the rasa dance, go back and serve your husband. They said, no, you are the husband of all husbands. I'm surrendering to you. So Krishna said, good, sarva dharman prityaja, you followed this. So that's why on the highest stage we have to even give up religiosity, any religiosity, and approach Krishna solely in the mood of Braj as a lover and beloved. Forget dharma and dharma. Okay? So that means real surrender. Real surrender means giving up all attachment to even dharma and dharma. Should we stop here? Or should we go to a different meaning? So far it's only like 45 minutes, but it's a really tough explanation. A lot of detail. Next one is talking about Adi Ras. We already talked about it, so I can go over it brief. Let's try to plow forward. I want to finish this today. What time is it? It's not even... let's just... a few more minutes, okay? So Krishna's abode, transcendental abode, by his mercy and by surrendering to him, and by performing the practice of Bhakti Yoga, Sadhan Bhakti, Navada Bhakti, then we can go to his abode and achieve our true being. So that's Gurudev's first explanation of this verse. And he gives 4 more. And we've already done this verse like 6 days, so we want to move forward. So the second meaning Gurudev gives, I'll just go over it briefly, is Janmada Seyata, like we said, the second to like the 5th day, we were talking about Adi Ras and Madhurya Ras. So the second meaning, which is like the deeper meaning, each meaning we're going deeper and deeper in. So the second is Adi Ras, which means the original mellow or relationship or taste or humor, which is Shringar Ras, which is conjugal, amorous love in the Parakya mood, even beyond the responsibility of wife and husband or marriage, just the lover and beloved without any other covering. So this is the real meaning and the deeper meaning, and all the other meanings are like included within this, because this is the Adi Ras, this is the original thing. So Gurudev said that all the different shlokas in the Bhagavatam, they have one like hidden meaning and direct meaning, and many different meanings like this. Okay, so Madhurya Ras means Krishna is the ocean of Ras from whom Madhurya Ras manifests. And Adi Kavaye means Sukadev Goswami, because he is like teaching the Ras Panchadhyay. Then Tejo Vari Mridam. In this meaning, Tejo means Srimati Radhika instead of Krishna. Why? Because ultimately Shakti is potency, and the potent is he who possesses the potency. So fire is the primal, it's like the most original or most like basic idea of what is power or potency, fire. So actually Radhika is like the fire and Krishna is like Krishna is like the fire in Sastra. He's described to be like the fire. Radhika is like the heat and the light. Right? Ultimately they're inseparable. Shakti Shakti Matora Beda, Shakti, the power and the possessor of the power, or inseparable. Krishna and Srimati Radhika are the same. But at the same time, they're separate. Just like the fire has heat and light, the same way, without fire there is no heat, no light. So Radha and Krishna are inseparable. Okay, so that's the basic idea of that. In this verse, in the second meaning, the first meaning, the basic prayer is to Krishna. Second meaning, the basic prayer is to Srimati Radhika. The second prayer, Vyasadeva prays to Srimati Radhika, who is the power of Krishna. When we say fire, we say Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. So the end, Satyam Param Dhimahi, I meditate upon the absolute truth. What are we meditating upon? Srimati Radhika. When we chant our Brahma Gayatri, we are praying to the sun god. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. That Bhargo means power of Deva, the potent. And that power of that means that fire, the sun god, that is ultimately like the servant of Srimati Radhika manifested from her own power, potency. That's why in some myths in the ancient world, the sun god represented a female goddess, wasn't a man. Okay, the sun god is worshipping Srimati Radhika, and when we pray Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi in our Brahma Gayatri, when we are referring to the sun god in that verse, actually we are referring to Srimati Radhika and her power. So there's a secret meaning here in the Bhagavatam. Mostly Sukadeva Goswami does not use the name of Radharani. In few places, however, he uses her name indirectly. In the second canto, 4th chapter, text 14, he says, Radha Sasvadhamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. That's a very secret verse as well. It has one apparent meaning and one hidden meaning. And the hidden meaning is that Krishna is always with Srimati Radhika and the gopis in his own abode. So Sukadeva Goswami gives many hints, because in the Bhagavatam it's all leading up to Braja Lila and the glory of Radha Krishna's pastimes in Braj. But in leading up to it, he talks about so many different things. But even when he's talking about these different things externally, really he's only talking about Radha Krishna Lila. This is the specialty, that even in the second canto, this verse is about creation. So this verse, what does it mean? Namo namastasta rishabhaya satvatam vidurakastaya muhu kuyoginam nirasta sangyati sayena radhasa svadhamani brahmani rangsyate namaha. The external meaning is, I offer respects unto Krishna, who is with the Yadu dynasty and who is always causing distress to the non-devotees. And he is the supreme enjoyer of both material and spiritual worlds, and yet he enjoys in his own abode in the spiritual sky. There's no one equal to him, because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. So this is saying that actually, this is the external meaning. The internal meaning is that Radha Sasvadhamani Brahmani Rangsyate Namaha. Krishna is always with Radhika and the gopis in his abode. So we'll end with that today. Thank the Lord. Is the fact that although externally everything looks one way, really those who are Rasik and Bhavuk, they can always see the internal thing, that within every word of the Bhagavatam, within every sloka, Radharani's glories are present. And therefore the Rasik devotees or the Bhavuk Bhaktas, they are always absorbed in that higher pastime. Even when we were talking about something like which seems ordinary, hidden there is the pastimes of Radha Krishna. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. So, before we run off, we have to recite it. So we're going to do it, the whole thing once, looking at it. Should we do 555 or is that too much? Let's try 222. Yeah. Or we'll do it tomorrow. We've been practicing memorizing it for the last 3 days. Every day we do the first line in 3 different parts, 555 times. Looking, not looking, and silent. So we'll just do it twice now, looking at it. Twice not looking at it out loud together, and then just think about it if you can. No, the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah, we'll try it. Janmadhyasya yatonvayadi taratas sharteshva vigyasvarat tene brahma hridaya adi kavaye bhuyanti asuraya tejo vari mridam yata vinimayo yatra trishargo mrisha दम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकम् सत्यं परं धीमहि जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरया तेजो वारिमृदं यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा दम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकम् सत्यं परं धीमहि जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरया तेजो वारिमृदं